When we're calculating probabilities, there's some element of uncertainty or randomness. And so a random variable is a numerical description of the outcome from some random experiment. And so often we're interested in random variables and finding probabilities of them. But the way we do that depends on what type of random variable they are. And so we're going to talk about discrete random variables, which are random variables that can take on only specified discrete values. So often these are things like whole numbers. And then we'll also talk about continuous random variables, which can take on any numerical value in an interval or a collection of intervals. So if I'm talking about things like distance or time, that doesn't have to be kind of a discrete thing. And so those would be maybe examples of continuous things. So we're going to start in the next section talking about discrete random variables. And an example of a discrete random variable would be if I contact some number of customers, let's say 5, and my random variable might be the number of customers who place an order when they're contacted. And so the possible values, if I contacted 5 people, I could have 0 of them place an order, 1 of them, all the way up to all 5 of them that place an order. So this would be an example of a discrete random variable. It can be these numbers. Another thing I could do is I could offer a customer a choice of 2 products. And my random variable might be the product that they choose. And this might not sound like something that's a number, but I could encode this as a number. So I could make my random variable 0 if none are chosen, and 1 if they choose product A, let's say, and I could make my random variable 2 if the customer chooses product B. And so I can still encode this as 3 discrete options, 3 discrete numbers, 0, 1, or 2, depending on what they do. And continuous things don't have to be whole numbers. They aren't. So maybe you say a customer visits a website and your random variable might be the amount of time that they spend in minutes, let's say. So that doesn't have to be a whole number or a discrete set of options. They can spend any amount of time. They can spend a minute, 50 minutes, half a minute, 30.3 minutes. Any of these things would be possible. And so all that I would need to specify was that they can't spend a negative amount of time, so x can't be negative, but any positive or non-negative value could be an option for this random variable. Another example is maybe I invest some money in the stock market, $10,000. And the random variable might be the value of that investment after a year. So it might grow to be a larger amount. It might shrink. And so my possible values would be anything non-negative. It could shrink all the way to 0 or it could grow, but it doesn't have to be some specified, discrete values. It could be any decimal value that's at least 0. And so we want to understand distributions of random variables so that we can answer questions about probabilities. But the way we do that is going to depend on if our random variable is continuous or discrete. And even in those cases, we have some particular distributions that are very common and useful. And so in each of these cases of continuous and discrete, we want to learn about some things that are common, commonly encountered types of distributions of random variables, so that we can find probabilities and be able to analyze our data. And so in the next section, we're going to start talking about discrete random variables, and then we'll switch gears and talk about continuous and learn how we can handle both of these things and how we can calculate probabilities.